It's pretty cool. I can press start on my phone and start the camera like that. Should probably minimize that. Does that look okay? Does that look okay? I feel like it was better when they were on, right? Seems okay. How's it going, everyone? My name is Dean, and I feel like we're still missing something. We could try color grading. I don't actually know if I'm going to know how to do this snap transition, so that's either going to do a transition or it's going to be really awkward. Or both. Okay, so this is basically the first actual vlog thing that I'm doing for the channel that's not just a camera pointed at my face by the computer. Although technically the camera's still pointed at my face and I'm by the computer. Yeah, so I thought today we would do a little bit of a post-mortem on the first 5 weeks of the 20 and 20 challenge. So for those of you that are new to the channel, I've been doing this challenge for the last 5 weeks where every week I create a new web project. You probably saw something like that in the title, but I don't know how clickable I had to make it for the algorithm. We'll see. But basically every week I create a different project. They're not full-on websites, but they are educational resources. So I create the whole project so that I can learn how to do the thing. And then I go back through the whole project so I can teach everyone else how to also do the thing. So week 1, we made a blog. Week 2, we made a restaurant for a freelance project. Week 3, what did we do in week 3? So this week we're going to be doing a quick portfolio application. We made a portfolio project. Week 4 we made an API in JavaScript, and then week 5 we just finished a React version of that same API project. So we made a to-do list each week. We'll get back to that portfolio project in a minute. But yeah, so I thought it'd be fun to step through each of those and sort of give my thoughts on how the project went, what I would have done differently, and what I'll be doing differently moving forward. First thing I'll say, based on that video, the absolute first thing that will change going forward, that intro took too long. I need to get to the point like that. I hope that didn't do the color change transitions a whole bunch of times when I snapped. Oh well, we'll just forget about it. We'll fix it in post. Or we'll fix it in post-post? Is there a post-post? I don't know. But yeah, let's go ahead and let's start with week 1, the blog. So my initial plans for week 1 were just a very simple Hello World project where there's a blog post with some comment. Because it's been about 2 years since I've done anything Rails related, really. So I thought this would be a good way to, get back into the swing of things and see what's changed. So the first 2 episodes went okay, but then in part 3 I was like, hey, there's this new action text thing, which I haven't really played around with. Let's go ahead and let's give that a try. So I tried to make these comments where you could bold your text or italicize it or all that other stuff and do some formatting. And, it was all stuff that I've never really done before, so it was a learning experience for me. But the episode ended up taking about 2 hours long, which I wasn't a fan of. It's great for watch time, which YouTube loves, but it was terrible for views because you don't get to the good part until an hour in. And even then, it should have been split up more. So I tried to split up week 2 a bit more, but the requirements changed. So moving forward, I tried to split things up a bit more. But overall, week 1 was, I'd consider it a success. It basically fulfilled the requirements that I set out for myself, which was let's make a basic blog and do something a little bit different than no one's really done before. And to me, that was the action text comments because I hadn't really seen something like that covered yet. So I thought, hey, that's a win. So what would I grade week 1, on a A to E scale? I'd say week 1, considering it was my first real video back in about 2 years, for that, it was an A, because it was actual content that I got out finally. But in terms of what I covered, the speed I covered it, and with how clear I was when I covered it, I would say it's closer to maybe a B, B minus. It's definitely one of the better 20 and 20 challenge weeks, but it's not something to write home about. So let's move on to week 2. So week 2, we did the freelance restaurant project. And this week was interesting because initially I started off with this, let me print it out. All right, here we go. So this was what we did wait, that's my resume. this was what we did week 1, which is basically just a list of requirements from like a fake customer who's like, hey man, I want a website. Can you make me a website? And you say, yes, sir, I can make you a website. What do you need? And he sends you this list of requirements. They're not helpful, so you kind of have to do the whole thing on your own. It's a very basic website. Then the comments sort of expanded it into this really big and scary project, and I was like, you know what? If I'm afraid of it, it's probably going to be good for me. So I went ahead and I did it anyways. So I'm just going to throw that on the ground right now. So we changed the requirements from just 5 basic web pages to it needs to like have a shopping cart. It needs to be hosted, and things need to work in production, which is a fancy way of saying throw it on a website and make it work in the real world. So we went through most of that, but again, there was some odd failings here. Like the first one I ran into was because I wanted to use Stripe for checkout, which is like a credit card payment processing platform. My account never got verified. Like apparently my YouTube series wasn't businessy enough for them. So I tried to contact customer support, and it's been 3 weeks now and I still haven't heard anything. So that didn't pan out. I still can't cover Stripe because I still don't have the key that lets me cover the full project video length. So that was kind of annoying. The other thing I didn't get to was the back-end admin panel because the project stretched into like half of the next week because it was pretty expansive. And it was consuming a lot of my time, and then I had like a backlog for week 3, which we'll get into with the portfolio project, but you know, it was a lot, and I fell short. So honestly, the restaurant, I'd say it's better than the blog in terms of what we covered. Like it was a lot more dense. The videos were also split up better. Like it wasn't a 2-hour-long video, but some of the requirements fell short. So in that sense, I'd give this probably closer to a C. And now week 3. Oh boy. So in week 3, I was invited to do Ruby for Good, and I still had the restaurant project in the backlog. So my weekend in week 3 basically disappeared, which was when I was planning on doing the portfolio project because I was already delayed thanks to the restaurant. And then because Ruby for Good is like an all-day event, I was trying to also record these videos and launch the blog, which just has its first post like as of 2 days ago, I think. So like 2 weeks later. But I was trying to do all of that stuff at night and then still participate in Ruby for Good, which left me completely shot. I was exhausted, but the portfolio project came out, so I thought, that's good enough. But then, you know, looking back at it, I didn't really cover the asset pipeline well enough, so if someone wanted to like do this project for realsies, they're going to have to look up another tutorial because I didn't cover how you move this stuff out of like the public folder, which is like having the folder on your desktop, into your documents folder, which is where you want to keep like your IRS forms or like your homework or something. So I didn't really cover that portion of it, like how you handle moving this into something that if someone ever looks at the code base, they're not just like, wow, he did the first thing that worked for him, but that's not best practice. And honestly, that was probably the most upsetting part and the most upsetting project by far. I lost enthusiasm a little bit after that project launched because I just felt like it failed. But that's part of the learning process. I'm supposed to fail. So in that sense, it was a solid D at best, but it was a good first failure because it made the next week's project better. So yeah, I would say it's a solid D. I wouldn't recommend anyone watch it, but the video still went up, so I got better at uploading and editing and recording, and I got to move on to the next project with a failure behind me, which is always a good thing because that's where you learn the most. So let's move on to week 4, the API JavaScript Rails backend video project thing. If I have one complaint this week, it's that I still don't know what to call this project. I think it's just a JavaScript to-do list, but that just doesn't seem to do it justice because it also connects to a Rails database. But let's talk about it. So this week we created a basic Rails project and we set it to API only mode. And what that means is that the project itself is going to function like a API. So there's no front end, so you don't have like your HTML pages. So if you try to go to like, you know, your mycoolwebsite.com/index or /home, that doesn't exist. But if you try to go to like mycoolwebsite.com/to-do list, you'll see the to-do list. It'll just be in like a raw data form, so JSON for those of you that are familiar. And what you do from the other side of the application, so from your JavaScript, if you're familiar with that, it's just front end, so there's no way to like save your data, sort of. I guess you could like write it to a file or whatever, but generally you don't do that. So when you see a JavaScript tutorial, it's like, here's how to create this cool blog or this cool to-do list or like a workout log or something, but if you ever refresh the page, that's gone. So this was sort of a way to get around that in a very easy way, because the Rails setup portion of this was very small. You just run like one command, you change maybe 2 files, I think, 3 files, and then you're basically done. So it was very easy to set up the hard part for most people. And then we could focus on the easy part for most people, which is the actual JavaScript side. The only hard thing there was like communicating between the two. And that's where basically all of the time was spent. So, you know, it took, I think, 3 or 4 episodes, but overall it was very successful. It covered what it needed to. It didn't take too long. And I feel like the part that most people thought would be scary ended up being the most approachable part, which is great, because then they can go to other tutorials and learn the rest. So this one's probably one of my 2 favorites. Shockingly, 4 and 5 probably rank the highest for me. So this one I would say gets like an A-. It's definitely a solid project. There's a couple things I would improve. Like I should have put more emphasis on, I'm doing this as a test environment. This isn't how you would fully set up the application in a real world scenario, because the API was open to the world, because it lives on my computer. So of course I'm going to leave it open to everything else on my computer. But in the real world, you only want like my cool example website to communicate with my cool example website's API. You don't want like, you know, Terry to start his own to-do list and put all of his items on your to-do list, and then you're stuck with like all of your to-do items and all of his stuff, because you don't want to go rake his leaves or whatever he's putting on there. So that's something I should have covered better. But overall, you know, for what it was a great project. And that's why I say this easily gets an A-, and it's probably like the top 2. All right, week 5. Basically the same thing as week 4, but we used React this time. So why was I so keen on React? First of all, the channel needs to branch out. I need to move a little bit away from Rails, not stop doing Rails content, but I need to like expand into other areas. And React is a great way to do that, because I'm already planning on covering my React project, the pathfinding project, and it's a good way to expand in a way that still gives people that like Rails content that is relevant to them, but it also allows me to grow the audience. So I felt like it was a win-win. So what did we actually do? We created the Rails API, and this time we used versioning, which I thought helped a bit, because it sort of showed how you go about, like if you upgrade your API or if you change something, and there's a whole bunch of people, like for YouTube's API, there's probably millions of people that make requests to it. So if they change how you get the comments, so you don't go to like /comments or /dean/comments anymore, you go to like /dean/community/comments or something, or /dean/videos/comments. That would break everyone's API integration if they're trying to get the comments off the page. What I did this week was I showed you how you create like versioning in the API. So you have like /API/v1, /API/v2. And if you do any major changes like that that break something, you can version it out. And then after a while, you can say, okay, we're now on version 6. So moving forward, we're deprecating version 1. So if you use it, it'll stop working. But it gives people time to update and like move forward without you just instantly changing everything and breaking it all. So I thought that was a great change, and I thought that provided a lot of value. The other thing we did was we used React, which is a front-end framework. So it allows you to keep a state. So a lot of the stuff we had to do before, we had to like go to the database, or we had to store stuff in a variable. Here you have like this whole state thing where if you update the state, it causes your components to re-render, which means instead of like having to find something on the page to delete it, you just remove it from the page's list of items that it knows about. So like our to-do list has 10 items, right? I remove item number 9. Now the to-do list has 9 items, and it's like 1 through 8 and item 10. 9 is gone. Just by removing it from that list, it's removed from the page through like a magic render call because of how we set everything up. So I thought that was great because it really showcased why you would use a framework like this over JavaScript, because that was like a 30-minute long episode last time. Here it's like a 2-minute change and we spend most of our time just making the application look better. So I thought that was great. My one complaint this week is the view count went down as the week progressed because it was like a 5-part week. So I think moving forward, I would probably cut it down again to like 3 episodes a week, and I would go back to the old upload schedule. So that was, that's sort of more YouTube-y stuff as opposed to content quality. Although I would say that the video length did reduce the quality a little bit, because if I had just committed to 3 videos, they would have been planned out better. And I feel like by condensing it like that and forcing myself to build the whole project prior, that would have drastically increased the quality of the videos. So that's something I would like to do going forward. It's just going to take a little bit more effort on my part. But overall, I would say this is probably one of the best weeks again. I would actually place this one probably either top 1 or top 2. I would say it's second place because the JavaScript API was just smooth all the way across, and this one kind of fell off a little bit. I would say the value out of this one, if you can get through the videos, and that's my printer going off right there, you do one gag and it comes back to haunt you 20 minutes later. I would say the value was much higher if you could get through the tutorials. So if you got through all 5 episodes, you got a lot more value this week than you did last week. But as for like the value that the videos themselves provided, I think last week was higher because it was easier for people to get to the end of it. So that's something I need to look at moving forward, is how I structure these videos a bit better. So I would say my final tier list would be like the JavaScript API, then the React API, or even just flip those two. Then probably the restaurant project. It might not have been as clean of a tutorial series as the blog was due to the Stripe issues that I ran into, but I think overall it taught a lot more and I learned a lot more doing it. 4th would be the blog, and then 5th, which is way down here, would be the portfolio project. I'm just not a fan of that week. Honestly, the thought crossed my mind to delete it, but I thought, the failure should be cataloged as well. Wow, apparently I'm so boring, I'm even putting my computers to sleep. But yeah, that's going to do it for this little post-mortem recap. I just wanted to sort of talk about what my thoughts were of the project so far. I don't really have any plans for the next 15 weeks, which is kind of scary because it's Sunday right now and I need a video that goes up tomorrow, so I'm not really sure how all of this is going to go. But yeah, that's going to do it for me, and I guess I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thanks for watching.